The movie opens with a mysterious ash falling from the sky, which wipes all women coming in contact with it. Women become extremely scarce as only a few survive the ordeal. The survivors are hunted down for a repopulation project with a $2 million bounty placed on each woman a prison presents. In the opening scene, we meet our protagonist couple, Will and his wife Eva, whom he has managed to hide for a year now. This marks day 400 since the arrival of the pandemic, and their house is in a complete mess. The situation is seemingly tense as they barely talk to each other, and Will is equally mad. As Eva takes a shower, the dark ash is seen washing from her, speculating she might have been in contact with it. It's revealed that Eva's mental health was clogged by the confinement and rules from Will. She eventually stepped out to feel nature and ended up subjecting herself to the ash, to Will's dismay. These events happen on day 400, and she immediately goes on to take a test for the infection, as Will watches in terror. However, they barely get the results when people heavily knock on their door, prompting Will to hide her in a secret chamber he has built. It's the military team making rounds to collect the remaining uninfected women for extraction. Will sits composed and lies straight to them, saying Eva didn't make it like many others. The commander goes on to inspect his house and is impressed by the measures Will took to protect his wife. He covered everything with plastic bags and set sanitation booths in preparation for the quarantine. He had to clean himself after heading out to find food to avoid infecting her. It's then revealed that men are just carriers of the infection and are barely affected by it. However, they can easily transmit it to their female partners, and Will keeps his distance. When a test kit almost blows his cover, he quickly says it's his as he tested himself to know his status. It doesn't end here as they discover a wall full of women's pictures, with most holding papers with dates written on them. This is of interest to the team, but Will argues they are women he once knew. They barely question him on this as the women most likely have succumbed to the infection. The team is finally set to leave and the commander approaches them, secretly letting him know Eva is around. However, he can't pick her up since she is infected and points out the result from before, which reveals Eva to be infected. As he leaves, he asks him to enjoy the last few days with her, revealing the infection takes one down in less than a week. A while later, Eva steps out and empathizes with her broken husband as reality dawns on him. Despite this, she asks him to pack as they set out for their last trip together, something they had planned before the pandemic. As they drive out, the effects of the pandemic come into play as the apocalyptic streets are deserted. An emergency announcement orders residents to adhere to the curfew and lock all fenestrations to avoid contamination, and also to report any females to the authorities. Later on, the couple stops at a store to get supplies from the almost empty shelves while Eva hides her identity. However, a store employee pounces on her, blowing her cover before Will comes to her rescue. He is armed with a handgun and threatens the guy as they flee to their vehicle before storming out. The movie then cuts a year back on the eve of the pandemic, showing the then happy couple. A news bulletin anticipates an iconic moment as Cavino's comet is set to pass close to the Earth. However, the news barely spreads as nothing big comes of it, including the lovebirds. One day, Eva proposes to have another road trip to a waterfall since it's been a while. Their conversation is cut short by heavy thunderstorms followed by the fall of a mysterious ash. At first, they think it's snowing until Eva's friend storms their house covered in the ash. She seems weak and shortly collapses, prompting them to rush her to the hospital while taking cover. Strangely, many people flock the hospital, which is easily overwhelmed by the surge. It doesn't take long for Will to notice that all the incoming patients are women, and immediately alerts Eva. She doesn't believe at first, but shortly attests to it, prompting them to flee after stealing hazmat suits from the hospital. When they get home, Eva receives a call from her dad who gives them quarantine protocols. Back to the present, the couple gets up the following day having spent their night at a hotel. As they resume their journey, they come across a diner and Eva asks Will to stop for lunch. Will is pessimistic about the idea as it would risk exposing her and bring them chaos. However, Eva wants to eat her last cooked meal in the diner rather than on the road. Will goes in for scouting before inviting her in for the tasty meal while Eva keeps cover. It's here they learn of a project tagged Embryo Project, which aims at repopulating the world. However, this has them placing a $2 million bounty on women, which men in the diner discuss tenaciously. The couple grows uneasy about the conversation and prepares to flee after tricking the waiter. However, Will notices Eva's ear bleeding, signaling the advancement of the virus now called HNV-21. He panics and attempts to wipe it off, almost blowing their cover as he stumbles on his chair. They immediately walk out, but a father-stepson duo of bounty hunters catch wind of them. Along the way, Will gets a meltdown as Eva's worsening condition grows imminent, leading Eva to break down as well. Later on, after recuperating, they make it to an entrance in the forest leading to the waterfall. As nightfall approaches, they stop to erect their tent for the night as they enjoy shooting together. As they go in for the night, they become intimate as Eva is infected, unlike before when Will was forced to stay away. However, it doesn't end well as Eva gets seizures following the virus's progression in her body. The scene then cuts to the dawn of the epidemic as Will tried to get a hold of the situation. He immediately covers everything in plastic and sets up a sanitation booth to disinfect himself when coming in from outside to seek supplies. He also puts up UV lights to kill the virus while boiling their water for the same purpose. As days go by, distressing news comes in announcing the death of millions of women from the dangerous virus HNV-21. It's also announced that men are carriers and could easily transfer it to their partners. Will is forced to keep off his wife, but soon decides to take the test, only to discover he is actually infected. Later on, the authorities start their search for the surviving women with rumors spreading about horrific experiments being conducted on them. This prompts the couple to build a secret compartment for Eva to hide on such occasions. As Eva slowly gets bored by the routine, she dives into the internet and comes across a secret women's chat room. The room has 131 participants who have managed to elude the infection going by their aliases to stay anonymous. Over the course of time, the number dwindles as more women get infected. On the other hand, Will grows overprotective of Eva as more women succumb to the virus. This, however, takes a toll on her, resulting in frequent arguments when she fails to follow the protocols. By day 400 of the pandemic, only Eva and a second woman remain in the chat room. However, this is also short-lived as the lady informs Eva that they were raided and she has somehow been infected. She finally sends her photo with her passing date, which Eva prints. She then pins it on the wall, full of the other fallen women from the chat, and her hope for survival dwindles. Later in the day, Eva receives a distress call from her dad, who seems badly injured with bruises all over his face. He informs Eva that her mom was taken away despite his fights to stop them. As Eva learns about the shocking revelation, Will grows impatient as this puts them at risk of tracking by the authorities and he immediately confiscates her phone. This immediately brews an argument as Will informs her the authorities will be on their neck if she continues on the unsecured line. An unrelenting Eva quickly reaches out for his handgun and orders him to back down and leave. On his way out, he notices the ashes falling and runs back inside only to find Eva missing. Eva, who has been fed up with the pandemic, heads for the rooftop in a hazmat suit and stands at the edge of the building. She finally opens it up to feel nature for the first time in a while, and the ashes land on her. Will, who has made it to the rooftop, hastily does not believe his eyes to see her throw her corpse to the wind. This led them to their current situation, as Eva gradually faces the wrath of the virus in the far-off forest days later. The following morning, Eva gets up earlier than Will and heads to the river for some water. Unbeknownst to her, the father-son bounty hunters have managed to trail them and are closing in on them fast. Things worsen as Eva collapses as she gets more seizures with her worsening condition. When Will gets up to find her missing, he calls out for her only to be answered by Arthur and his stepson Casey. Having confirmed he has a woman with him, they tie him up while Will shouts out to Eva to flee. Luckily, Eva has now gotten up, hears him, and walks towards their camp to see them tying him up. She then flees as instructed, but Arthur spots her and goes after her. She manages to hide between two huge rocks, but again convulses as Arthur retracts to their camp. Later on, he engages Will, curious to know how he kept Eva for that long, as he lost his wife a few weeks later to the pandemic. He put up a spirited fight by sealing their basement to keep her safe there, but barely worked for them. He is furious at Will for failing to present her to the authorities for the repopulation project. However, Will counters this, asking if he would personally present his wife if she survived, to which Arthur answers no. With this, he heads to the tent, leaving Casey to watch over him as he affords some sleep. Later that night, Will wakes up to Eva walking towards them undressed. Casey, who hasn't seen much in a long time, stares at her, and she swiftly knocks him out. She then rushes to untie Will and prepares to leave when Arthur catches wind of it. He fires at them, prompting Will to fire back using Casey's rifle before fleeing, leaving Arthur, who is seemingly shot, groaning in pain. Unfortunately, Will is also hit in the leg, and Eva helps him as they make their way to the waterfall. Finally, they get a breathtaking view of the gushing waters with a sigh of relief. Eva apologizes to him for giving in to the pressure and losing the fight against his wishes. The two embrace dearly as Will takes a final photo of her with her passing date like the rest of her team. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed the content. Like and share in the comments any movies you would like us to recap.